Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another Tribe webcast, another one of the series of our peak preparation webcast, where we're talking to a series of key partners we work with and get some insights on what's undoubtedly going to be an incredibly different peak from any we've seen before, as we come ever closer to Black Friday, and we're in the golden quarter, obviously. So today we're joined by Greenlight Digital and Mark and Hannah. Perhaps you guys like to do a quick intro. Hi guys.
How's it going, Alistair? So my name is Mark and head of paid search and social at Greenlight. Been working in paid media about 9 years thereabouts, for the most part, agency side, and also primarily retailer side as well, so lots of B2C.
And hi, I'm Hannah, Director of Paid Media and Data Insights at Greenlight. Been in the business for about 16 years, in the industry for about 18, 19 years. So obviously primarily responsible for our media teams, working closely with Mark, our data and analytics teams, and also support with the board as well. So as I said, been with the agency for quite some time now.
Thanks, guys, and thanks very much for joining us on this in the series of our podcasts. So we've been talking across the last couple of months as we get ever closer to peak. Obviously, 2020 has been monumentally different for a lot of reasons, and now we're in lockdown 2.0, which brings with it the first ever pretty much digital only peak. So from Greenlight's area of expertise, what do you guys see as what retailers should be doing to ensure success and maximize what is ultimately going to be a really challenging period?
Yeah, I think that's the £1 million question. But from our side, what we're looking to do is, as an agency, as an paid media specific for this particular topic today, what we're trying to do is just to dig into as much consumer behavior that we have at our disposal. And really what's changed this year that you've kind of touched on in your question is that the kind of data we've had previously is out the window. So beforehand, we've always had year-on-year trends that we'd be able to see seasonal peaks and troughs year on year that wouldn't really change. But what we saw from March was everything that we had relied on before was kind of out the window. So time of day was out the window. We're getting different types of consumers coming through. But the advantage now that we have as we get towards peak is that we have about 6 or 7 months of how consumers have been behaving during lockdowns. So we have a couple of things that we're working with our retailers on. Okay, keep an eye on this. This is what we believe consumers might do or how they might behave. And a couple of things here that we are focusing on. So one is how consumers are purchasing products and what they're expecting. So one of the key things is that they're looking to engage in, say, minimum contact purchasing. So that's like buy online, purchase in store, curbside pickups. Looking at the first one, buy online, purchase in store, that's, I think in the UK, it's 8 out of 10 UK consumers are planning to buy their products this way. Of course, that's pending lockdown restrictions and so on, but that for us, that's a totally new consumer that we didn't have before. So now the question is, can we actually service this consumer? Are we set up in a way to allow us to do this? And then moving on from that too, it's also trying to be aware of what type of a consumer will we have on our hands in peak 2020. So I think quite an interesting little anecdote or nugget that we've seen from our partner research, from working with partners, is that this year it's the earliest we've ever seen Christmas planning start. So people are kind of, okay, we've had a rough year. We want to treat ourselves as Christmas and plan as best we can. So looking at Pinterest, for example, it's not traditional search, but people on Pinterest tend to be, they're very much organized planners. Searches for Christmas planning and gifting started in June. That's the earliest it's ever started. And we're seeing this trickle over into more traditional search. So we're seeing, for example, brand and generic search uplift overall about 30% year on year. A huge amount more search volume happening. So people are researching that journey started much further back than before. And also consumers are weighing up more brands. So what we've seen during lockdown is beforehand, people will be, okay, these are my brands. This is my go-to. I know I want whatever product it is, this is my brand. But now consumers are weighing up much more brands in that process. So it's a double-edged sword. So either you can look at it, okay, there's a potential I'll lose customers to another brand, or I can also widen my funnel. There's the opportunity to tap into more customers. So that's really some of the core things we're looking at for emerging consumer behavior. And then what's interesting from the brands that we're working with, how are they adapting? So we work with quite a wide range of brands, retailers, some B2B, B2C as well. We're looking at, say, some of the high street brands. So we work with Gap. So during lockdown one, something that shifted for them was they had massive increase in on-site search for kind of loungewear joggers. Hadn't really been seen before for them. So well, what we did, okay, let's try and react to this quite a very quick shift in consumer behavior. Okay, consumers are looking for loungewear joggers. Okay, let's tap into that. Let's change our messaging to ensure consumers can see this quite quickly, and also try to just ensure consumers can have that easy. It's an easy process for them to see the products are available, whatever channel that they're being served on. So it's our display, social, search, and they can find them on site. But it's also as well tapping into those new opportunities if there is, which was a massive new vertical for them, is masks. Like if you were to talk to us in 2019, would we ever envisage masks or Gap making masks to be worn? You'd never think that. So but what Gap were able to do was to build out a whole new range of products that they weren't just the surgical looking PPE masks. They were just quite nice looking. People could express their individuality through these masks, and they sold out across the board. So just the kind of point there is really within that change in consumer behavior, are there any elements of changing sub-verticals? Is there a new product that you can look at, there's potential to shift into this? And one tool that we're working with clients to try and dig into these insights. So it's Google's rising retail product categories. So are there changes in consumer search behavior that we've seen week on week? Okay, that's something we should jump on.
Yeah, you covered a lot of stuff there, and data is a really interesting one, and it's been a kind of common theme now that we're a bit further down the line, and you've got that 6 months of data around consumer behavior, activity on your site as well. Obviously, that's the bit once you get into the site, making sure they can get through the site, and the site can handle that that profile based on lockdown data as well as some of last year's data, the combination. But yeah, really interesting insights, and the new customer, new opportunities. It's things that these brands had never thought of before. It's clearly really opportunities that have to be maximized. Hannah, you had a couple of thoughts on that one as well.
Yeah, so I guess there's keeping with the theme of what we should expect from consumers, but in the view of data. I mean, as a business, we take a data first approach. So the point of Mark obviously highlighting some of the key trends that we've discovered so far is exactly following that lead. It's making sure that the clients that we work with are armed with the information that's important to their sector, their business, the audiences that they're trying to target, so they make the right business decisions. And that, although has always been the way in which we've approached things, has probably become even more important this year. And if I think back to mid-March, April, and some of May, most of what was coming out of this particular team, the media team, was just constantly sharing data, insights, analysis of what was going on in the marketplace. Even clients that had switched off because they just needed a minute to think about what was happening. The importance of data has become, well, it's twice as important as it ever was, because of obviously the changes to what we've seen because of COVID, for example. So I guess when we look at data, there's kind of three things that, well, I guess you can put data into three buckets if you like. So the first is obviously audience data, and Mark and yourself, you've talked about the fact that we have this new type of consumer, and it's not one individual. It's partly what we expect to see every Christmas, every Black Friday, the gifters. But it's not just buying for other people, it's gifting for yourself. And that consumer has been apparent throughout the entire year because of COVID and people being at home and needing to do something, if they have the disposable income. there's a different type of consumer because, again, to one of the points that Mark's made, brands are pivoting. They're changing their proposition somewhat in response to COVID. So although, using Gap as an example, it's a brand that sells apparel, it's also a brand that has the skill set to make masks, although be it they're fashionable masks, but they're able to kind of pivot and provide that requirement that we all need now. Obviously, we're in the current situation that we're in. So what brands are finding is they're actually attracting new audiences because, to Mark's point again, you know, people aren't just going back to the brands that they know, because some of these brands have had to safeguard themselves and therefore they don't necessarily have the stock. So they're spreading themselves a little bit further along. So, you know, differences in who we're attracting now has become not just a one-off, it's become an ongoing thing. And that's probably likely to continue into 2021. The second thing is of course, performance data. So for brands that have been able to pivot and to take advantage of the situation in obviously the best possible way, they are seeing, you know, incredible returns on their ad spend. And as such, we're having to crunch the numbers far more to try and understand, well, how do I continue to grow this? Is this a one-off COVID effect, or is this something my business should expect to see moving forward? Now, in some instances, the increases in revenue or ROI are absolutely incredible, but a lot of those can't be repeatable. But it has created an increase in brand interest or awareness, to which it's then up to that brand to continue to grow that through investment. So one of the things that we're doing with a number of clients is saying, look, this kind of peak that you've seen, of course, is related to COVID, but we can continue some of that peak through investing into mid-top funnel activity. So again, it's about using the data to understand, how do I use this opportunity or this stepping stone that COVID, in a sense, has given me to continue growing my business? And then I guess the third thing is internal data. You know, what does this mean? Can I afford to operate at these costs? Because while COVID has created an incredible opportunity for a lot of businesses, again, if we go back to the start, there are a lot of clients or brands that we were working with that were struggling to keep up with the increase in demand. And there's a client that we used to work with many years ago, a fishing client, where they took advantage of not obviously a COVID situation, but a Black Friday demand increase in product demand, but they were still fulfilling orders 6 to 9 months later. So one of the things that brands need to be aware of is not biting off more than you can chew. You know, while this is an incredible opportunity for you, should you really be going after everything, knowing that there might be some other logistical, distribution, etc. issues further down the line? So it's about listening to those 3 different data points and trying to make the best out of what you have in front of you.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I think all those things kind of lean into kind of protecting the brand reputation as well, don't they? Making sure that all those new opportunities that you guys have talked about and using that data and maximizing the opportunity of the new customer, once you get them there, you got to make sure they have a seamless experience. And that experience goes all the way through, you know, once they interact with the brand right at the top of the funnel, all the way through the journey across the site from a site performance perspective and a customer experience perspective, all the way through to fulfillment, as you say, Hannah, making sure that once that order is placed, logistically you can fulfill it, you've got the stock, because they're going to want to get those goods, and that all feeds into that whole brand reputation and keeping that customer for the future, not just for this peak. So yeah, that's really interesting.